In the harsh desert outside Las Vegas, survival requires cunning and grit. And the paths of an epic race season converge here on an unparalleled proving ground that will test the spirit and competitive will of all who enter. Today, the best athletes in the sport have earned a shot at a $50,000 prize. But first, they must endure a grueling 24-hour race, working against time and fear. Yet from their spirit of community is born an individual quest for greatness. The course is set. The racer's ready. Who will write the final chapter?
Last dance in Las Vegas.
This is World's Toughest Mudder. Twenty 2017 has been a big year for obstacle course racing, also known as OCR. And just outside of Las Vegas, over 1,500 competitors have arrived for the 7th annual running of the World's Toughest Mudder.
World's Toughest Mudder is like the perfect zenith to the Tough Mudder season. It's the biggest, the baddest, the longest, the hardest, most competitive, so everything's been building up for this.
Here we are now, and I'm really excited just to get out and run and run and run and run.
Tough Mudder is the ultimate test of physical and mental endurance. In addition to toughest and world's toughest, regular 5 to 10 mile Tough Mudder half and full events take place almost every weekend on courses around the world. It's here that the legendary Mudder community comes together to support all participants, help each other on the course, and define winning as doing your personal best. Leading up to this event, athletes were regularly put to the test, honing their OCR skills at 6 8-hour overnight races called the Toughest Mudder Regional Series. Competitors who finished within the top 5 in one of the toughest regional events were awarded elite status for World's Toughest, which includes a prime position in the pit area with easy access to the race course.
You know, you always worry about the prep and making sure that you get as much as you can. Now it's here, and it's going to be a dogfight.
Here in the pit, competitors set up their bases of operations, where prep for the 24-hour race is crucial.
So this will be like what I have to run each lap in like an hour 19.
Although the temperature at start time is forecast at around 70 degrees, the desert climate guarantees a precipitous drop after nightfall. Quick access to things like wetsuits and food are key to a well-organized pit and can mean the difference between success and an early exit. The pit at World's Toughest is also where members of the Mudder Nation gather socially to reconnect and celebrate the year's accomplishments.
It's like Burning Man meets NASCAR.
You just see lanes and lanes and lanes of tents everywhere. It's kind of like this organized chaos.
It's so much fun to come into the pits.
In my signature move.
One of the most inclusive groups of humans that I've ever seen. And you see these teams together of like mixed, mashed people, and you're like, how did these people even get together? Should we wrestle? And this year, we have athletes in wheelchairs, Jesse, and the opportunity fell into my lap to work with this gentleman, Superman.
You ready for this? Oh, yeah.
The premier OCR event has drawn the biggest names in the sport, and all eyes will be on the highly competitive men's and women's individual competitions. For the women, it's one of the most stacked fields in World's Toughest history. Starting off with returning 2016 champion, Stephanie Bishop.
I started out my year with a lot of health issues, but I'm gonna keep on pushing, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, that was my whole thing last year. I just kind of like to slip in under the radar and do my thing.
Also competing is the 2017 Regional Toughest Series champion, Allison Ty.
I really feel like this year at the Toughest Series, I was able to drop the hammer and kept strong all the way to the end. So I'm really hoping just to keep that momentum into this super long race we're going into.
Lesser known to Mudder enthusiasts, but coming in highly regarded by her fellow competitors, is ultramarathoner Rhea Koval.
I'm coming from an actual ultra running background, so I have run 50 miles before. So I don't think I'm gonna focus on trying to sneak up on people, more just see if I can trick myself into actually running for the whole time.
After several dominant first-place regional toughest performances this year, Lindsay Webster also arrives with high expectations.
Last year, I came in to do this 24-hour race, and it was by far the longest distance I'd ever taken on. I didn't have as much experience, but this year, you know, I've got 3 toughest Mudder races under my belt.
For the men, Webster's husband, Ryan Atkins, is the presumptive frontrunner.
This year, leading up to World's Toughest Mudder, has been, I think, more hype and more excitement than ever. There's a lot of rock star athletes coming in to compete.
But he will be challenged by his 2016 World's Toughest teammate and the winner of Europe's Regional Toughest event, Jonathan Albin.
I did Europe's Toughest Mudder, one of the harder, toughest events this year. So that's kind of bodes well for me because I managed to get the win and do the 50-mile bonus. But then obviously, unless you race the best athletes at every event, you don't really know where you stand.
It's been a highly anticipated head-to-head matchup between Atkins and Albin, who won the 2016 team championship together.
It's like an Ali Foreman type thing, you know, that's how it's touting to be.
Not to be counted out, returning men's champion Trevor Sykos has his own designs on the 2017 podium.
Last year, I won the race, and I'm coming back as the reigning champion, which means I got to try and defend my title and surpass my mileage from last year. I have confidence I can get 110 miles this year.
Placing second last year in the team division with Chad Trammell, Robert Killian is a top contender returning to World's Toughest to run solo.
Sometimes I felt like I was holding him back. Sometimes he felt like he was holding me back. So this year, you know, I want to see what I can put out there, and it's going to be myself, John, Trevor, and Ryan just all out there battling. The first person to 110 miles gets that big bonus.
$50,000 is on the line for the first man to reach 110 miles, and for the first woman to reach 100. Epic feats fitting for what is being touted as the last dance in the desert.
Last year in the desert, so it moves venue next year, and for me, it's just a very magical place because I only know World's Toughest as being here.
And with one of the most formidable fields ever assembled, it has the makings to be the greatest World's Toughest ever run.
I'm gonna bring the hammer down.
Atkins, Albin, Trevor, I'm gunning for everybody. Yeah, I've got a huge chip. I've got a whole bag of chips on my shoulder. Yeah.
Oh, it's counting down. 3, 2, 1.
Final World's Toughest Mudder to be run in Las Vegas is underway. Like all Mudder events, World's Toughest integrates the natural surroundings of the location to enhance the challenge of an already difficult 24-hour race.
The terrain that we're going to be running, it's loose sand, gravel, so you know you do run into the risks of twisting ankles and that kind of thing.
Adding to the rigors of the grueling distance and precarious environment are 21 man-made obstacles that are introduced at different times throughout the day and night as the race progresses and conditions deteriorate.
The course is brutal this year with the combination of teamwork-based obstacles, water obstacles, and grip-intensive obstacles. It was just a perfect storm of a tough course.
Combined together, they are a daunting collection of challenges designed to further exhaust the competitor's physical and mental endurance.
You get a tired grip, you get in some mud and all that to make that real slick and challenging. I'm trying to keep myself calm and just chill out and be in the moment.
Adding to the challenge are new obstacles like Kong Infinity, which makes its debut here at World's Toughest Mudder. With surprises around the corner, caution is as important as speed.
I don't totally just gas myself off the start, but I kind of mark people and keep tabs on people.
Former Army Ranger Robert Killian favors a more aggressive approach.
I like to go out and, especially for that first hour when you know there aren't going to be all the obstacles open, you want to try to get in as many miles as you can early.
Like Killian, first-time World's Toughest competitor Rhea Coble throws caution to the wind, finishing her first lap 3 minutes ahead of the pack in first place.
Actually, it didn't feel fast. I think that's just because I was used to the 10-mile races where people go really fast.
Coble's speed and competitive grit took root at an early age.
I grew up in Slovenia. I was born there. I did gymnastics, and I was on the national team from when I was 10 until I quit at 17. It was 4 to 7 hours a day of practice, 6 days a week. I think that gave me a lot of discipline. They always taught us if we fell, even if you were hurting, is to just go back and do it again. I think that helps with obstacle racing because if you fall down, you just get up and you keep going. I came to the United States for school, so I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad. I met my husband there, and right now I'm at Stanford. I'm a graduate student. I'm doing PhD in applied physics. That's what I do when I'm not running.
For the veteran Lindsay Webster, her experience in the Regional Toughest Series has enabled her to refine the preparation for her second appearance at World's Toughest.
I've learned a lot about different gear. If I'm going through water, then I'll stick in a pair of earplugs and helps keep my body temperature up. I think World's Toughest Mudder requires a lot more time on feet. So I think I'll just keep an eye on my heart rate, and if I see it getting higher than I want it, then, you know, that's a sign that I should slow down a little bit.
Constantly monitoring heart rate to regulate their pace will be crucial, since competitors must complete as many 5-mile laps as they can over 24 hours. The most completed laps in the shortest time wins the race.
The rumor is that it's very obstacle heavy, which will play definitely into my favor. I'm just not as fast as some of the girls, but this is a really good opportunity for me to be able to gain ground.
Quickly clearing obstacles is essential for success on the Mudder course. Failure means having to complete a time-consuming penalty lap.
The penalty was almost another mile of running, which when you've been running for 18 hours or whatever, that's quite painful.
As the first obstacles open up on the course, competitors immediately shift strategy, slowing down the pace for the long road ahead.
Once the obstacles start, dialing into your pace and not letting others dictate, what you're going to do, I think that's going to be key.
They're just starting to open the obstacles, so just trying to keep it easy and not get mauled up by the barbed wire and just keep trucking.
I'm gonna start a lot slower this year than last year. I'm that person that I wake up 16 hours in, and when people are broken that late in the race, it can be really easy to pass all of them.
Just over 2 hours into the race, Robert Killian pushes the pace, daring the competition to follow as he surges ahead of race favorites Ryan Atkins and fellow military veteran Trevor Sykos.
But one of the things that's actually brought me into obstacle course racing was being in the military, Special Forces, Green Beret, and one of the things we do as part of our training are obstacle courses. All those experiences have helped me to go back and reset the drawing board, and I think I'm more prepared and more ready for this year. And that's kind of why I decided to go solo. I've done the team race with Chad. We hit 100 miles. There's only 4 people who have done that in the entire world. It's crazy how a 100-mile race can literally come down still to every second, every lap, and you just got to keep pushing forward.
How you feeling?
Feeling great.
World's Toughest newcomer Rhea Coble continues to lead the women, ahead of top-flight competition that includes Allison Ty and 45-year-old World's Toughest legend Deanna Blegg.
Having a great time, getting the miles done, and just feel amazing. I'm really happy with how it's all going.
For the women's 2013 champion, this World's Toughest appearance represents a lot more than a chance to return to the podium.
I've had a kind of a rough journey. Back in 1994, when I was 24 years old, I was diagnosed with HIV. You talk about shocks in life. I'm only alive today because the HIV medication was available. Since then, I've been able to have a family, pursue a career, pursue my sporting career. Last year, I found a lump in my breast. It was found to be breast cancer. I had a lumpectomy, went through chemo, lost all my hair. And for me, it was just a matter of rebuilding. And it just amazes me that, and I'm 45 years old, I've been living with HIV for over 20 years, and I'm beating like elite chicks that are 20, 21, 22, and it was really overwhelming. It was like I was living this little dream that I'd never thought possible. So whatever happens in the 24 hours of the event, is a bonus.
Coming up, with sunset right around the corner, competitors urgently try to get in as many miles as possible before the hazards of night arrive.
I do like the night factor because I think everyone who's run the toughest is gonna have an advantage there.
Darkness weighs on the brain and weighs on the body a lot more. It is absolutely a very difficult challenge.
Four and a half hours into the world's toughest mudder, and the moon-like terrain is already wearing on the athletes, including 2016 women's champion Stephanie Bishop.
My hip's hurting a lot, so we're gonna just take it step by step.
The dirt, dust, and cracks in the desert hills outside of Las Vegas are not the only things keeping competitors of all shapes and sizes on their toes. In a 24-hour race, time inevitably takes a toll on the athlete's stamina, and obstacles like rope-a-dope do more than their part to chip away at their resilience. The concept behind rope-a-dope is simple enough.
You have to climb this rope and then shimmy down this one.
The main challenge is grabbing the rope every time because it's pretty hard to coordinate that jump and grab, especially when you've been running for so long.
The start of the climb offers a surprise.
You climb up this rope, but they have it tethered down, so you can't use your feet on it. So you end up having to mostly just muscle up the rope with your arms.
You gotta squeeze the hell out of it to get up it. And then also, you're pretty high up, so if you missed your first one rope to the next, it's gonna be a long fall.
As formidable as it is, for Mudder veteran David Tyson Perry, also known as Superman, rope-a-dope has been one of the lesser challenges in his life.
I fell off a roof is why I'm in this wheelchair. The Superman name, it came from my family believing in me. They kept pushing me to do extra things and bigger things, and then I ended up doing these Tough Mudders. We did our first Tough Mudder in 2013. That feeling from the first one can't be matched. I can't really describe the feeling in words. Tough Mudder, they're the best people. And their heart is bigger than anything else you'd ever think of. People to see my story and want to reach out to help me. It just proves that there still is like heart out here in this world with so much negative stuff going on. I've told people on the course when they've looked down and out, you know, like, hey, it could be worse. You're already here, might as well finish. I don't let the fact that I'm in this wheelchair be the reason that I'm not out there. This is the biggest moment that I've ever been a part of. And my teammates get to be a part of that. It's a special moment.
It's right around dusk in the desert, and Robert Killian remains in first place, continuing to hold race favorites Canadian Ryan Atkins and American Trevor Psychos at bay.
There's so many amazing athletes that come out to this. There's so many possibilities, you know, with strengths and weaknesses and what can happen. And I didn't see John Albin up there, so I was kind of like, where's John? Is he really sitting back?
Just outside the men's top 5, it's unknown to the competition that expected front runner Jonathan Albin has suddenly faltered.
I was puked everything up on the last lap, and I'm not feeling so good.
All I can concentrate on is my strategy to forget anyone else exists, just me in the course, try and do as many laps as possible.
There's gonna come a point in a 24-hour, 100-mile race where your body's gonna just check out, and it's gonna say, this is all I've got.
Still feeling good. This is, right now, the longest I ran this year.
In 4.5 hours, Rhea Coble has run 2 miles farther than a marathon, but there's nearly 20 hours left to go as she holds on to first place over veteran Allison Ty, while Lindsay Webster breaks into the top 5 for the first time, taking third. The setting sun marks the arrival of what is known in the Mudder community as night ops, the 12-hour time period from dusk to dawn when running the course becomes even more challenging. The pit responds with a flurry of activity.
I like the end.
In the pit, knowing and choosing what gear to use and when to use it is essential to getting through the race in one piece.
There is so much equipment for this race. You've got like wetsuits, and you've got specific shoes or gloves, and then you've got all your food. But when you strip it down to the essentials, finding things that make the race better for you is all part of the game.
As mudders push on into the night, the rigors of the course start to take their toll.
The sun goes down, that alone changes everything. They were getting colder than we were expecting, and I kept getting reports that the freaking obstacles were brutal.
Oh, come on, knee. I hit it like right on the edge, right on blocking this monster.
In a surprise to the rest of the field, Jonathan Albin succumbs to illness and retires to the pit to recuperate.
My heart kind of broke for him when I heard that, because I know how competitive of a person he is.
With Albin now out of the race, a new path to the podium has opened up.
When the projected leaders start dropping, I mean, that opens the doorway for other people.
This is where the race starts. People start falling apart 50 miles in, and other people just keep doing what they're doing. That's what I'm doing.
Night has progressed on the course outside of Las Vegas, and the temperature has dropped from the daytime high of 72 degrees to 50.
The temperature's dropped 15 degrees, the wind's hitting 10 miles an hour, and you're being plunged into water. The grip strength endurance starts to fail you.
Further complicating this challenge, obstacle placement is a huge factor. The cold water of Shawshank severely impairs grip strength and dexterity right before when mudders need it most, swinging from the rotating bars of Funky Monkey.
Once it started to get a little bit colder, those obstacles become very difficult, and failing Funky Monkey, which was an almost full mile penalty, just mentally broke me.
It's like a 6-minute penalty loop, so I know Atkins is right behind me now.
For me, what was frustrating is that's exactly when Ryan Atkins passed me while I was on my penalty loop.
Having surpassed the vaunted 50-mile mark, Ryan Atkins takes advantage of Killian's misstep to take over first place.
For a Funky Monkey, you transition to these super slippery monkey bars. I swear they must have polished them or something.
With conditions deteriorating even further, Funky Monkey continues to stymie the competition, this time claiming elite competitor Morgan Mackay, who sustains a concussion and has to leave the race.
Morgan was very strong that she doesn't fail obstacles. And then she's on Funky Monkey and comes off and bangs her head, and game over.
Approaching the 50-mile mark, Rhea Coble continues to grow her first-place lead. But there's another shakeup in the women's race as Lindsay Webster erases a 10-minute deficit to overtake a struggling Allison Ty for second place.
After the sun goes down for a little bit, usually about 8 hours into the race, I have this little dark point, and it's always like, I don't want to be here, I want to go home, I'm tired, this is taking forever.
In the pit, Ty's husband John is right there to help her recharge the batteries with food and emotional support.
Every time I see somebody I know and love, it helps, but it's just one of those things. You ride the highs and you ride the lows, and right now it's a low, so keep riding.
Like Ty, all of the competitors depend heavily on the members of their pit crews to help rejuvenate both body and spirit.
The pit is where the race can be won or lost. Having a good pit crew and having good strategy is essential.
It's just before the halfway point of the race, a pivotal moment in the competition, and 6 of the 9 water obstacles are open, making the conditions muddy and cold, which weighs heavily on the competitors.
Around midnight, everything just gets kind of slower and bulkier, and I don't think a lot of people were ready for that.
The hard push into the night continues to take its toll, further thinning the ranks of elite competitors. Tyler Nash makes an early exit from the race, finishing with 50 miles.
I don't think you can prepare for cold, and you got to keep moving. If you stop in the pit for more than 10 minutes, you're in the death zone.
And 2016 women's champion Stephanie Bishop exits the competition with 35 miles.
I've been dealing with a lot of pain in my hip, leg area. Unfortunately, it's not getting any better, and I have to be smart and responsible, and it's hard when you're this stubborn, but you got to think about the future, and I don't want to end my career today.
Of the 27 elite competitors who entered, only 17 now remain. And for them and the 1,300 other competitors still in the race, a long 12 hours still await. Coming up, after midnight, it's a whole new race.
Literally halfway through the night, they'll change the way some of the obstacles are even configured.
And the terrifying obstacle synonymous with the Las Vegas course opens up.
You walk up there, and it's so high.
It's midnight on the Mutter course, the halfway point of the race, and the line that separates the truly committed from the rest of the pack.
It seems like such a blur. You're just waiting for that moment when it gets really, really tough. And I've been there so many times that it's exciting. It's like you can embrace it and you can like sink your teeth into it.
For all mutters, the stroke of 12 signals the opening of one of the most daunting obstacles of them all. The cliff.
The cliff is like stepping up to this big black void.
You see it. It looks high, but you get up there and it is ridiculous. Like, people look like ants.
Athletes can train for most of the challenges on the course. However, it's nearly impossible to prepare for the sheer anxiety that the cliff's freefall induces.
This is what Tough Mudder's trying to do, is get you to expand your boundaries. And we believe you can. You've got to overcome this.
They don't like it, but they know if they don't do it, they got a massive penalty lap, so they do it.
As difficult as the cliff may be for most competitors, it's especially challenging for adaptive athlete David Tyson Perry, who clearly earns his nickname, Superman.
My teammate says, yeah, we can do it.
Just like that, baby. Almost there. Come on.
I can jump into the water like everybody else, so I don't have to take a penalty lap on that one.
Anybody else going?
All you.
Despite the threat of almost a mile-long penalty lap for failing to complete the cliff, confronting it is a significant hurdle for Lindsay Webster that proved insurmountable in last year's World's Toughest.
Last year I did it once and then I couldn't bring myself to do it again, even though the penalty was almost another mile of running.
Despite quickly clearing the cliff, the second-place Webster gives up 10 minutes to third-place Allison Tai. Meanwhile, Vancouver native Michelle Ford breaks into the top 5, even though she finished second in Canada's toughest regional. Ford is an underdog at Worlds due to the strong field of female contenders.
There's a lot of comfort in it. There's like no pressure. No one knows who I am. No one will recognize me on course. It kind of really gives me the chance to just think about my race.
I come from Canada, so the cold, I'm excited for the cold weather, to be honest.
I was a jock my whole life, so I grew up playing sports. My dad was a big-time football player, and then that sort of led into everything. 2 years ago when I came, I had never done a single Tough Mudder. I had so much fun on that race. Loved everything, and I love the community. I'm friends with Allie, and I mean, she's been great. We're just both so happy for each other, no matter how we do.
For the men, Ryan Atkins runs 2 minutes faster per mile than Robert Killian and increases his first-place lead to over an hour. Meanwhile, Killian continues to stay in front of the highly motivated returning champion, Trevor Sykos.
Everyone thought it was either John, Ryan, or Robert's race. It kind of counted me out. I want to prove them wrong, but if you're going to say who's the most dangerous on the course, it's Ryan Atkins.
Respected by his fellow elite competitors and widely admired in the OCR community, the unassuming Atkins has reluctantly embraced the attention and accolades his success has brought.
When I started doing more racing and stuff and I started becoming recognized, it was like super strange to me. So I wrote nobody on the back of my bib just to try to stay grounded and to say I'm not special and I need to work. When people come up to me and they say things like you inspired me to lose 100 pounds, or you're the reason why I signed up for this event and it changed my life, it's really cool.
Even more dominant than Atkins, Rhea Coble runs 4 minutes per mile faster than the rest of the field, holding on to first with an 8-mile lead.
I like being chased if I have a comfortable lead. So in that sense, I think the race was really perfect.
Rhea passed me for the second time on lap 13, so it was her 15th lap, looking so fresh. She looked so good. I was in shock because she's not gonna hold that pace up, but she was just crushing it.
You're thinking, okay, Rhea, at what point is it gonna start adding up to her and you're gonna see her have this epic drop off?
I'm gonna keep going at what feels a good pace. I'm actually feeling pretty warm right now, so this is good.
It's 90 minutes before sunrise, and in the last quiet hours of night, the competitors face some of their biggest challenges yet.
People are kind of zombieing their way up through the course. That's when I find I start to get a little sleepy. I start thinking about how good bed's gonna feel.
In the middle of the race, towards the end, that is a big struggle that we go through. We're trying to figure out where our competitors are, how big of a gap they have, and sometimes it's weighing on your mind every single lap.
I was cold and just in pain kind of everywhere, but mostly it's trying to keep my mind occupied out there. I know that Ryan plays mind games, and he says when he gets really bored and runs out of things to think about, then he'll just count his steps, or you come up with little reasons to keep going.
For such a hard race, it's really important to stay positive, and as soon as you start going down that dark hole, it's really hard to come back from.
I was in second place up until, I think, sometime just before sunrise, and then Allison passed me, which I knew would happen.
With under 6 hours left in the race, Webster falls to third place behind Allison Ty, while newcomer Ulrike Evensen from Denmark doggedly remains in the top 5.
I do not consider myself as good as these athletes yet. I started taking OCR seriously in 2016. I was still studying software development. Then I saw World's Toughest Mudder, and I just knew that one day I had to go. In Denmark, we mostly have the 5K. Then there's a few of us who are crazy enough to go the long distance. If I can get top 5, I'm gonna be so satisfied.
And then, dawn arrives and the entire course comes back to life. For those still racing, knowing the end is near lifts their spirits. One of those athletes is Tough Mudder product designer Christopher Maltby, a committed endurance athlete running in his 5th Worlds.
I had the benefit of some anonymity. I wasn't an elite contender. I was just in the regular contender pack, so I was a little bit back from the start. So I've been working in product design with Tough Mudder for a few years, from new event formats. This past year we rolled out Tougher Mudder, the toughest 8-hour events, Tough Mudder X, all of those, so I worked heavily on the design of those. When I first started doing this, I came into World's Toughest and just wanted to see what I could do, didn't prepare enough for it. And I remember looking up at the top 5 and saying, wow, these guys are incredible. But every year just went at it and chipped away at it, and it's almost a spiritual experience for me. It's special for me to see my coworkers hop up from their desks and cheer me on passing through. It's a really energizing, special feeling.
At just after 6:30, Maltby breaks into the top 5 behind Denmark's Michael Schutt and a surging Trevor Psychos, who's now about 20 minutes behind Robert Killian.
Trevor, at any moment, could change gears. I kept hearing the gaps, so it was like, oh, 30 minutes, 35. Oh, now he's down to 25. Oh, now it's down to 20. And I was like, no, this is not happening.
Robert Killian's Army SF and winner of the Best Ranger competition, which is probably one of the most prestigious races in the military. So, he's a contender in every race he goes to.
To see that, beautiful sunrise, it gave me a second wind to keep pushing and separate myself from Trevor, where, I didn't want him to think that he could catch up.
Above the fray for second place with a comfortable 10-mile lead, Ryan Atkins sets his sights on nothing less than 110 miles and the $50,000 that goes along with it.
It's awesome, all these people crushing it.
But also knows he can never afford to lose sight of the remaining challenges in front of him.
At that point, I was still just thinking to myself, okay, there's a lot of racing left. Stupid things can happen. Keep it together. Don't mess anything up.
For the women, with Rhea Coble seemingly out of reach, the rest of the field heats up.
At this point, we had kind of let Rhea go and been like, okay, that's not happening. But we were worried about Michelle because she finishes very strong and she has a lot of endurance and she can turn it up.
Every lap, I started to pass more and more elite contenders. That really got me going to try and go and catch Allie on another lap.
With the shakeup in the women's top 5, Sixth place Deanna Blegg positions herself to make a move as she enters the final stretch of the race.
My pit crew said, there's 2 women in front of you that are slowing down and you're moving really well, you can catch them. So that sent just a shot of adrenaline. Being on ascent just lifted my spirits. I thought, all right, I've got a mission here, and that's when I started the chase.
By the final 3 hours of the 2017 World's Toughest Mudder, a full third of the field has dropped out. For the men, Ryan Atkins holds a commanding lead in first and is on pace to reach 110 miles in 24 hours, a feat that has never before been accomplished at World's Toughest Mudder.
Did a re-estimation of my new lap times, and I'll probably hit 110 at noon. And so I just tried to keep it together and not get excited until I was in that finishing chute.
Ryan Atkins pretty much already got the win, but I can fight for second.
Late in the race, my focus is just to keep moving for the 24 hours. I want to hit my certain mileage goal, which this year was 100.
In these crucial final hours of the race, Trevor Sykos remains in third, steadily pursuing Robert Killian, who holds a 3-mile lead.
I know Trevor's 45, now he's only 30. So yeah, that definitely made me pick it up just a little bit as well.
I know Ryan Atkins is in front of me, I know Trevor's behind me, and I know that I have to go out and smash these last few laps to solidify second place. And I had been saving a little bit in the gas tank just to do that.
Meanwhile, after more than 18 hours, a completely exhausted Lindsay Webster succumbs to the rigors of the course.
I couldn't lift my feet up anymore, so I ended up getting passed by 3 girls, which brought me down into 6th.
She falls out of the top 5 and contention. The rest of the women's top 5 continues to be highly contested, as the fight for second place between Michelle Ford and Allison Ty is now at a critical juncture.
Legs are getting real stiff. Everything's getting real hard.
She was about 40 minutes ahead of me. Then my crew found out that she was slowing down, so then they were trying to hustle me to maybe get in 1 more lap before noon hit.
Michelle looked like she was going to go hard and potentially catch me.
Having already run almost 70 miles, 48-year-old Deanna Blegg breaks into the top 5, battling neck and neck for 4th place with Ulrike Evensen, who at 23 is less than half her age.
I'd just come through my transition. I was out there with my porridge. So I've turned around and seen Everson behind me. I just went, oh, okay, she's got some grunt. Got to push out another strong lap.
I was battling with Deanna Blegg, and I was pushing as hard as I possibly could, and I was like, okay, let's just bring this one home, and I just felt so good.
The Las Vegas desert comes alive in the final hours of the race as spectators and pit crews rise to the occasion, inspired by the gutsy performances on the course.
Everybody was cheering really loud, which felt really good. I'm not used to this quite yet.
Well, the crowd is just uplifting you, something like that, and make it so much easier to keep on going and to keep on pushing.
It's now an hour until the race's official 12 p.m. finish, but the rules allow competitors already out on the course before noon to continue running until 1:30 p.m. to complete their final lap. Although Trevor Sykos is fading, Robert Killian takes no chances as he cruises through the pit and heads right back out onto the course in pursuit of 105 miles.
I wasn't satisfied with just 100 though. You know, I want to go out and do better than I had done the year before. So I want to go out and do 105 miles.
Trevor could come in 40 minutes and decide to go on another lap. So I'd rather just seal the deal right now.
For the women's race, just short of 24 hours, and with Michelle Ford right on her heels, Allison Ty must decide on taking a 17th lap.
So she can catch me?
No. You have 2 hours and 20 minutes to do your next lap. Yeah. And it's yours.
My last 2 laps were significantly faster than her 2 laps. And her husband was like, you have to go out for that last lap.
Michelle Ford could steal second if she's running 130 laps. And apparently she's still strong on the obstacles, so it's possible.
While second place continues to take shape, the close contest between Deanna Blegg and Ulrike Evensen comes to a close with Blegg beating out Evenson for 4th place.
To finish in the top 5, to know I've been able to rebuild my body back, and also to be like 48, like I'm double the age of most of the girls out there, so absolute thrill.
Adaptive athlete David Tyson Perry, better known as Superman, completes his goal of 25 miles.
It's life-changing. This is the biggest thing that I've ever done.
After 19 laps, Trevor Sykos decides he's had enough as he secures 95 miles and 3rd place for the men.
The course is brutal this year, but just mentally pushing through, it just proves that, you can do anything if you just don't quit.
Becoming only the 2nd woman to secure 90 miles in World's Toughest history, rookie Rhea Coble blows away expectations as she crosses the finish line in 1st place for the women.
I kind of signed up for this race not knowing if I could finish it, and then to win it was just overwhelming.
Gutting it out to finish 105 miles just under the 1:30 cutoff time, Robert Killian takes 2nd place for the men.
I went 105 miles, pushing my body past any expectations and any limits that I thought I had. That is what, Tough Mudder is about. And to get 2nd place, yeah, it's amazing.
Allison Ty wins the battle for 2nd with Michelle Ford, picking up the pace in her 17th and final lap by 30 minutes and completing 85 miles.
I was really impressed with my performance. I was out there in a stacked field with some incredible athletes, and it was a huge accomplishment.
But among the great performances, none was better than that of Ryan Atkins. He crosses the line in just under 24 hours, having run 110 miles on a course that was widely considered the most difficult ever. It was a feat never before accomplished at World's Toughest Mudder, and was a fitting end to a year of dominance in the inaugural Regional Toughest Series. For his efforts, Atkins won $50,000, an orange blazer, and the admiration of an entire sport.
The Toughest Mudder has really kept that ember burning, like, inside me. And so for me to just finish up this big challenge that I had set out to undertake, and it feels really good.
With the conclusion of the World's Toughest Mudder, here are the final standings. The road to World's Toughest Mudder had many stops, but only one destination. The last dance in the desert is where the OCR world came together to put themselves to the ultimate 24-hour test of strength, endurance, and emotional will. The stars of the sport rose to the occasion, and some fell short, but none failed to accept the challenge. And now that this dance is finished, the line of what's possible has been redrawn. And the countdown begins for the 2018 season, where the toughest regional series grows to include visits to Germany and Australia for a total of 8 events, and culminates with the debut of the World's Toughest Mudder in Atlanta. New chapters to the Mudder legend await to be written.